back to DC Live, everyone. This is the voice that reminds you that we care, we share, and we are on air. This is Grammatist, the show that sharpens your English for the corporate world and beyond. It's Monday at 5:30 p.m., the perfect time for us to improve our communication at work. Today, we are focusing on three powerful words in English language: could, would, and should. These words may look very simple, but they can completely change the tone of your communication. They can help you sound respectful instead of demanding, collaborative instead of forceful, and professional instead of abrupt. So let's compare three sentences. The first sentence is send me the report. Next is could you send me the report? And the final sentence is would you be able to send me the report? Now in this, the first sentence is direct. It may be appropriate in some situations, but depending on a tone, this sounds more like an instruction than a request. The second sentence is a bit more polite, and the third is the most considerate one because it checks the person's willingness. It is asking for their willingness and their availability before we ask for the requirement. So in professional English, politeness does not just mean being weak or unclear. It means communicating your purpose while respecting the other person as well. The word could that we use often makes a request more polite, or it expresses the possibility. Would will often express the willingness, preference, or a polite request. And should is commonly used when you're talking about any advice, any responsibility, expectation, or formal conditions. So by end of today's episode, we will learn how to make polite requests with could words, how to ask about people's willingness with would, and how to give a professional advice with should. Now, we can also learn how to soften the disagreement in corrections and how to avoid grammatical mistakes while using these three words in our conversation. Let's begin with the word could. In professional communication, could is used when you would make a request, ask for a permission, or when you're describing a possibility. Let's start off with polite request. The basic structure of your sentence is going to be could you plus a base verb and an object. So whenever you use could, it will always be followed with a base verb. For example, we will always say, can you send me the invoice? You can't say, could you send the invoice? It should be, could you send the invoice, not send, not past tense. We'll say, could you review the proposal, not could you review it. So we'll not use the past tense, we'll just use the base form or the present tense form of the verb. Now, let's go through a few examples. Like, could you share the revised presentation? Could you confirm the delivery schedule? Could you forward the feedback to our team? Could you explain the reason for this correction? Or could you arrange a follow-up meeting with the team? So the word could over here makes the request sound less forceful make it sound less as an instruction. So instead of saying send me a report, which is direct, you can say could you send me the report, which is the more polite and professional form of the sentence. Now, adding a please along with this will make the request even more warmer. So if you could say, could you please send me the report? This is the more warmer, polite, and professional way. But however, remember that politeness depends on the complete sentence and your tone as well. So adding please does not automatically makes an aggressive sentence polite. So for example, if you say, could you please do this immediately? It may still sound demanding if the situation does not require the urgency that you're trying to create. A better version could be, could you please prioritize this request if possible? We need to share the report by 4 p.m. Okay, so this sentence explains and gives the listener the complete context. The next is using could for permissions. So we can also use the word could to ask permissions. The structure is could I plus the base word. For example, we can say, could I ask a question? Could I add a point? Could I share my suggestion? Could I leave the meeting 5 minutes early? Or could I suggest an alternative option? Could I speak with you after the meeting? So in a formal setting, could I is usually more polite than can I. You can say, can I leave early? This is acceptable, but it again sounds too direct. So when you're asking for permission, it should always be, could I leave early? This sounds more considerate and more polite. For an even more formal request, you can say, would it be possible for me to leave early? Instead of saying, could I leave early? I can make it more formal by saying, would it be possible for me to leave early? We'll come back to would a bit shortly. Now let's talk about the next option for could, where you can also use could to describe a possible result or a possible option. For example, you can say this change could improve customer retention, or this delay could affect our launch timeline. We could reduce cost by consolidating our suppliers. The new process could improve productivity. So in these examples, the words could talk about a possible result, not a guaranteed result. Now, there is a difference between this and saying this change will improve customer retention. So when I say will, I have a very strong expectation that yes, this is what is going to happen. But when I'm saying it could improve, I'm saying this is a possibility, but it is not 100% promising result. So this makes could useful when discussing forecast. When you're not 100% sure of the result, you're thinking there might be slight risk, slight changes in the forecast or proposal. In that case, you can use the word could instead of will in your sentences. Next is using could for suggestions. You can also use the word could when you're presenting an idea without forcing it on the listener. So, for example, let's say you're telling we should redesign the entire process. Instead of this, if you say we could test the new process with smaller team, or we could redesign the process with a different team, we could redesign a part of the process. So this is where your sentence becomes more open, more collaborative, and it also invites discussion. When I say we should do it, it becomes a direct instruction, a command. There is no other option. But when I say we could work on redesigning, it is a possibility and I'm inviting discussions from people. So this is especially useful for us in meetings because it is going to allow you to contribute without sounding that you're imposing your decision. So when you're trying to share your suggestion, your feedback during meetings, in that case, you can use the word could. So we can say we could test the new process, or we could schedule a separate session, or we could compare both the proposals. Okay, these are a few examples with the word could. Now let's move on to would. In professional English, would is commonly used for polite requests of like offers, preferences, invitations, and conditional situations. So let's start off with polite request. The basic sentence structure is would you plus the base verb. So for example, when you're requesting someone, you can say, would you review this report for me? Or would you confirm your availability for a meeting? Would you share your feedback before end of today? Would you join us for the client presentation? Would you be able to support would you be able to support the implementation? So would you is often similar to could you, but the focus can be slightly different. So when you're saying could you often, it often asks about whether something is possible or not, or whether the person is able to do it or not. So for example, if we say, could you prepare the report by Thursday? This is asking whether they have the time or the ability to complete it by Thursday. But if I'm saying, would you? If I say, for example, would you prepare the report by Thursday? This focuses more on the willingness. This is asking if the person can do it. I'm not talking about does he have the time or the opportunity to do it by Thursday. I'm talking about is he willing to do it. In everyday business communication, both expressions are polite and commonly used, but it depends on what are you expecting. Are you expecting to see if they have the time or if they are willing to help you out? The next is would you mind as a like polite request. So one of the most useful professional structures is would you mind plus the verb in ing form. So for example, if you can say would you mind sending the attachment again, or would you mind waiting for the finance team to join, would you mind reviewing this section, would you mind moving the meeting to Thursday? These are sentences where if you use the ing form of the word along with would you mind, it talks about a more polite, extra polite request. But be very careful with grammar. After using would you mind, you will always use ing form of the verb, not just the base verb. Do not say would you mind to check the report. It is always would you mind checking the report. If someone says would you mind opening the window, this is a polite agreement. Your response could be no, not at all, I will open it for you, or of course I will open it for you. This means you do not mind opening it. If you say yes, when someone is asking, would you mind opening the window? And you're saying yes, you're simply saying, no, I'm not ready to do it. You're unwilling to do it. So be very careful with your response for such statement as well. When someone is asking, would you mind? They're just seeing if you will have a problem or not. So your response should be, no, I don't have a problem. I can do that for you. Now, in a business situation, you can avoid confusions by saying, certainly, I will take care of it as well. If you're confused of whether I should say yes or a no, simply say, I can take care of it for you. Or you can also, if it is a no, you can say, I'm afraid I will not be able to do it today. These are easy responses to confuse both you and the listener. Now, next is for formal request. When you're writing to a client, maybe to a senior leader or an external partner, you will always use would it be possible along with the base verb for formal request. For example, you can say, would it be possible to extend the deadline by 2 days? Would it be possible to discuss the terms tomorrow? Would it be possible to move our meeting to the afternoon? This structure is more polite because it does not assume that the request can automatically be accepted. I'm not assuming that, okay, they can do it. I'm just considering them, their willingness. I'm also asking if it is possible for them. Would it be possible for them to do that? So instead of saying extend the deadline for us, even if you're saying please extend the deadline, this is just a request. But when I'm asking, would it be possible to extend the deadline for us? The sentence becomes more formal, more professional, and it gives the other person the opportunity to give us the right answer as well. The next way of using would is in the statement, I would appreciate it. This is again another valuable professional structure where your sentence is formed with I would appreciate it if you could plus the base verb. So for example, you can, if you want, let's say you're requesting for some email, you can say, I would appreciate it if you could confirm the details on the email, or I would appreciate it if you could complete the review by Wednesday. I would appreciate it if you could keep this information within us. So these phrases is used particularly in formal emails when you're trying to sound polite, but you also want to communicate a clear expectation. You can use this sentence on your emails. So the statement will go as, I would appreciate it if you could, along with whatever is the request. Or you can also say, I would be grateful if you could send the details soon, or I would be grateful if you can send the documents today. It can also be, I would appreciate your feedback on this matter, or I would appreciate your assistance in this matter. The next is, would you like? So when you're talking about any offers or invitations, you will use would you like when offering something or inviting someone to something. So for example, I can say, would you like me to prepare the minutes of the meeting? Or would you like a copy of the report? Would you like to join our discussion today? Would you like us to arrange a follow-up meeting for this discussion? Or would you like some time to consider your options? This sounds more professional than simply saying, do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? So instead of saying, should I work on the report? Should I join the discussion? Or do you want to join the discussion? Use the word, would you like to? So when you use the word, do you want to join the discussion? It becomes a direct question. Though it is grammatically correct, we don't use direct statements when asking something with people in professional settings. So would you makes it sound more respectful and more service oriented. So do you want me to work on this is also correct, but it is just too direct, not professional enough. That is why we use, would you like me to work on this? Okay, so we have covered the word could and would. Now let's continue with the next should in our upcoming session. For now, just remember, When you use could, you make a request more considerate. And when you use would, you show respect for another person's choice or willingness. Thank you for tuning into Grammatist on DC Live, where we care, we share, and we are on air. I'll see you next week. Until then, speak politely, write precisely, and communicate with confidence.